If you want to help out and support the channel, there are a few things you can do. Go check out Flipside Gaming and use the promo code VOIDMAGE in all caps. This will get you 10% off all orders $10 or more. And if you go shopping on tcgplayer.com, go use my affiliate link in the description below. That way all purchases you make will go towards helping the channel. And lastly, go check out my Patreon. It's a more direct way that you can help the channel while also getting some more interaction. I appreciate all of your support. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Commander video. This time I want to talk about 10 reasonable reprints for Commander in the future, whether that's 2020 or beyond. Some of these cards haven't even been reprinted since the 90s. That's how bad it's been. And there are of course many reasons why you would want to reprint a card. It's not always for money. Sometimes it's just a common sense reprint. If you see other cards that have been reprinted and it's just been a while since this has even been considered, maybe it's time to change that. Anyway, let's start it off here with the first card, and that is Cabal Coffers. Been reprinted once in Plane Chase, but that's the only time since Torment. Going to cost you around $50, which is pretty expensive. Not super expensive when you consider some of the most popular lands in Commander. There's of course Gaia's Cradle, but the reserve list is the excuse for those cards being pretty expensive. Cabal Coffers is a staple in mono black. It belongs in every single mono black deck. Mid to late game, it's going to net you a bunch of mana and still leave you with a lot left over, making it perfect for mana sinks. Just makes it so much easier for your deck to go off. Basically Black's version of those cards like Serra Sanctum, Tolarian Academy. Just a very powerful card. The next one is Scroll Rack. Now has seen a couple reprints in Kaladesh Inventions and Commander's Arsenal. Both of those reprints I don't think really count. To me, what makes a reprint a good reprint is the accessibility part. The same thing goes for Judge promos. I just don't care about those cards as much. They don't have as much of an impact on the value of cards. And if it is, it's very little. All they did was create a collector's item that is still going to retain much of the value of the original card. But Scroll Rack is a very interesting card when you compare it to Sensei's Divining Top. A lot of the same decks are going to play these two cards. However, there are clear advantages to Scroll Rack, and there are some advantages to playing Sensei's. Scroll Rack makes it a lot easier to put cards from your hand back into your deck. If you have shuffle effects, it's even better. It can work in a lot of the same ways that you would need a Sensei's Divining Top to work. We do have a lot of commanders that care about the top card of your library, but there are certain cards that you just want to have in your deck, especially if you have bigger creatures you want to cheat out into play, and that's your easiest way of getting them onto the field. You are going to need a card like Scroll Rack to put some of those cards from your hand back into your deck. You can find it for a little bit above $60, which is pretty expensive, and I know Sensei's Divining Top isn't dirt cheap, but it at least got a reprint in Eternal Masters, something that Scroll Rack has yet to see. Staff of Domination is one of the best artifact mana sinks that there is. It gives you a wide variety of abilities, combo potential. The more abilities it has means that the more decks you can fit it into, and that is a sign of a really good card in Commander when it has widespread playability. It's one of those cards that I don't think would realistically be $35 if it saw a more recent reprint. It's a good card, but it's mostly just a combo card in a lot of the same decks. That might change if it were a bit cheaper. Let's say if it were included in a precon deck, you would start to see it used for a lot more utility rather than just the straight up combos and wins. Did see a reprint in Kaladesh Inventions again. That doesn't matter that much. Fifth Dawn was 15 years ago. I think it's about time we saw this card again. And then we have the good old Mystic Remora from Ice Age. The drought has been even longer. We're talking almost 25 years. Might have more to do with the fact that it is just $4. Not a lot of people are begging for a reprint, but this is more of a common sense reprint. Something that really wouldn't take much effort and nobody would really complain. You get an all around really good blue card in a deck. Arguably better than Rhystic Study. It's a lot harder to pay the mana to stop you from drawing cards off of this, even if it doesn't count all spells. Because it's just a 1 mana blue enchantment, it does see play in the most competitive decks in Commander. It does have the negative reputation of Ice Age, but this is one of the best cards for only $4. And then we have Cruel Tutor. For all of the reasons why you would want a black tutor, Cruel Tutor is going to give you the ability to search for any card and for you to not have to reveal it. You do end up putting it on the top of your deck, and because it's 3 mana, it makes it a strictly worse Imperial Seal and a much worse Vampiric Tutor, which again makes this more of a common sense reprint. There isn't a strategy that's being held back because this card hasn't been reprinted. It's just a little ridiculous that it's been all the way back since Portal, and we still haven't seen a reprint for this card. You could even make the argument it's on a similar power level to Diabolic Tutor, which is pretty basic and it sees play everywhere. It's not reserved list, it's just a really old card that's never seen a reprint, and in Commander consistency is a big deal. Whenever you can tutor for anything, it's gonna make your deck a bit more competitive. Now we have another really powerful black card. We have Massacre Worm, all the way back from Mirrodin Besieged, almost 9 years old, $18 for what is a very strong black creature with one of the deadliest ETBs and a pretty disgusting death trigger to go along with it. So whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, they're gonna lose 2 life. You of course can take advantage of it for its ETB, you can take advantage of it for death triggers with Teysa Karlov. For reprint reasons in pre-con decks, you want to add a little bit of power, and Massacre Worm has potential to be an actual win con. So many token decks, so many decks playing elves, goblins, tiny creatures that are easy to kill. Massacre Worm just chews them up. And then we have Manna Echoes from Onslaught. It's been quite a while, $28 for something that I think is a staple in a lot of red tribal decks. If you're a fan of slivers, this is also a must-have. The amount of mana you can generate off of this is just ridiculous. It is colorless though, so it's at least not that broken. But something like this does have combo potential, so I can understand why it hasn't been reprinted in a while. Manna Echoes, there's no real subtlety here. Anytime you can generate an insane amount of mana, it's going to make the game much easier for you. Then there is Sylvan Tutor, another card from Portal, around $53. And I know what you're saying, there's Worldly Tutor, but I feel that most people have been begging for Worldly Tutor, not enough love for Sylvan Tutor. I think it's a little weird why we have to ignore certain cards from Portal. It is still strictly worse, but again, I don't think that's a good enough reason to not reprint something. If it's worse, then it should have seen a reprint a lot sooner, in my opinion. Maybe it's because we haven't seen a Masters set in a while. This would be an easy card to put into one of those, but since we are getting a lot more Commander products in 2020, I fully expect to see some pretty good reprints, as I'm sure a lot of you are as well. It is $50, but it's $50 because we're talking about an over 20-year-old card, and whether it's because of nostalgia or just the fact that it's never been reprinted, it's just that expensive. If it were to be reprinted, just like Cruel Tutor, I don't think it would remain at that price point of around $50. Still though, a good card for green decks, just like a lot of tutors typically are. And then we have Titania, Protector of Argoth. Last seen a reprint in Commander Anthology. Again, reprints like that I'm not going to count as much. You're not going to saturate the market with a lot of copies of this card. Kind of the same thing with Commander Arsenal. Even if that was more rare, whenever you can get an expansion set reprint, it's typically going to help out with that saturation, make the card easier to get, thus lowering the price, the demand for it. Titania though is kind of hard to get. Like a lot of cards from Commander 2014, this was still an earlier Commander product. Confidence isn't quite where it is now, and the print run isn't quite where it is now. So you're going to see a lot of good staples. This for land decks, going to give you the versatility of bringing back a land from your graveyard, as well as rewarding you for when you crack a fetch land or sacrifice a land period, giving you tokens. Usually what land decks want to do is benefit off of just interacting with their lands at all. Building up a board presence for doing what you're already going to do in a land deck is pretty sweet, which makes her an auto-include in a lot of those decks. And then the last card is Stirling Grove. Only printed in Invasion, and it's one of the cheaper cards in this video. It's only $8, but for a lot of people, it's expensive enough to just forget about. Kind of like Titania, once you get closer to $10, it takes you out of that budget range. I know a lot of people that don't want to spend more than $100 on a deck, and the more cards like these that you put into your deck, the harder that goal becomes, and we have here a pretty good staple. You're playing green-white enchantments, you gotta have this card. Not only does it protect your other enchantments, but you have a tutor. And you know what I've said in this video alone about tutors. They're pretty powerful. Having that all for just 2 mana makes it a very useful commander card. But anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know what you think about these 10 cards. Let me know if there are any other cards you want to see get reprinted. 2020 is going to be a crazy year for a lot of reasons. Commander, hopefully, will give us a lot to cheer about. You all have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video. Just wanted to say thanks to the patrons who are supporting me on patreon.com. Go check it out. There are different tiers with their own rewards. One of them is having your name in the credits of my videos. I know it's not much, but it's something that I can do to show my appreciation. Thanks again, and have a good day.